So let me share with you something, not really a phenomenon, but how this whole bounce phenomenon works and what we're supposed to be looking for. So let me just share this with you. So if you see a stock that's doing this, okay, it's going up. And then for whatever reason, it gaps down. It could be news, it could be sell off, in the overnight. And when it opens up lower than the way it closed the day before, that's a gap. So typically what you look for, and you'll see this in my alerts week after week, whether the SPY gaps down or the Qs or NVIDIA, the narrative is the same because the technicals are the same. When a stock gaps down like this, the first thing that typically you will see is like an algorithmic reaction. It's usually an oversold bounce reaction. And you've seen this almost every single time there's a gap up or a gap down, there's an algorithmic reaction. If price is coming down and you see a gap up, you will immediately see a quick algorithmic reaction to try to close that gap, usually. So that algorithmic move can come up, can come all the way up, partially up, at least a 50% retracement. But then it typically starts to head back down to retest that level. And that is where sort of the rubber meets the road, as they say. This is where, if you were a buyer, then this is where you would buy. A real buyer would come in here. And here's why. If you like the stock, you like the stock, you love the stock, you're not going to buy it up here, right? It's too expensive. So if you get price action where you get sell off or a gap down and a further sell off, you wait for the algos to kick in to give you the bounce, the dead cat bounce. And then usually it drifts back down to that level of support again. And that is when you would want to buy it, right? Is there any other time looking at this that's better than buying it right here? Because if it gaps down, or even if it comes down like this, and then it gaps down, and you get this dead cat bounce thing, little algorithmic shove to the upside to try to close the gap, and then a retest of this level. If it in fact holds that level, is that not the best place to buy? Buying here, no good. Here, no good. You don't know how deep are the pullbacks going to be. Plus, premium is ridiculously expensive. So you want to wait for price to come down a little bit, pull back a little bit. But if it pulls back with an extreme move, you don't get it here right away because you know there's going to be an algorithmic bounce. So if it bounces, it's going to be very quick. What could happen is that it returns to this level, but it does not hold. And if it doesn't, down she goes even further. There was a reason why this happened. It goes down further. You do not want to be buying it here, not knowing if it's going to drop like this. So what would you do? Well, you would wait and see that it retested this level and held. And if it does hold here and starts to come back up, that's where you'll buy. And that's where real buyers show up, not just the algorithms, but real buying. And it typically happens as soon as you get the gap down and you get a little bit of a, gap fill, and then it comes back down. Like right now, like hit the button and start buying. If you don't see hit the button and stop buying, then who's going to buy it? If the institutions and hedge funds and even retail traders aren't buying it here, isn't that very telling? So when I look at NVIDIA and I see here's your gap up, all right, but then you get this miserable day yesterday where you get a big sell-off. Another bad day for NVIDIA right here, followed by today, which was a gap up. right? So we had a little bit of a gap up, and then it fell down to this area of support, and now you want to see buying come in, but it didn't. You really did not see a lot of buying. Price opened today at what was the open? 195 ish, and immediately fell off. It immediately fell off from 195 and fell all the way down to here. And so what you wanted to see is at least take out like the top here, like at least take that out and start seeing if buyers and call holders would start buying the 200, which would force a gamma squeeze and lift NVIDIA up. Because if you got a lift up in NVIDIA, that will pull up the SPY. That'll send the VIX down a little bit, less fear now. Bitcoin starts to get some action because there's some positivity. All of a sudden, the Russell finds support. You see how this kind of all connects together. And then the gap down that you get is no longer, a correction. You now have a bounce that's turning into a rally, a real rally. But you cannot get a real rally without buyers. And this is the number one ticker to buy. It's the number one stock in the world. And if buyers don't come in here, and if Bitcoin can't save its ass above the 200 period moving average and get back above this level here, here's 104 and here's 100. You can't get back up over here and you can't get buying here. What does that tell investors? That's uh-oh. So what do investors do? They start to sell and they start to hedge, and that pumps the VIX. When the VIX gets pumped, guess what that does? It triggers algorithms in the indexes to sell, and you get a correction. It's all tied together. So when you read my alerts, these are the narratives that I'm kind of weaving so that you can go to the charts and go, oh, I see what he means. I see NVIDIA not getting any action. I see where the VIX levels are. I see what he means in the SPY with the gap and the fill. Like, you really need to go to the charts when you get my alert and see if you can understand the alert. So where does that leave us? Well, it kind of leaves us in between. So today in the SPY, let's go to the 3-chat one. Checking the IV rank. You can do that when you look at the options chain just to see if the implied volatility is high, but you already know that. You can already see that in the price action. Really, checking the IV is really, you want to do that closer to when you're looking to buy an option, just to make sure that you're not paying too much premium. That's really the right time to check. So here's the SPY. Here's the hourly chart of the SPY. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Gap up, boom. Here's the immediate reaction. Remember I said before, if it's coming down, if it's going up and then you gap down, the immediate reaction is to the upside. Well, now this is reverse, right? Boom. So you get that immediate sell-off. So what you want to see is when it closes the gap, the next thing you want to see is for it to hold. Fill the gap, okay, but does it hold? And then if it does hold this gap, will you get any real buying? Does any real buying come in to move it higher? And what you can see is not really. It filled the gap today. Now, this was a very important level. This is a very important level. It was about 680, whatever it was here. I'll pull up the real number. You could just look at the high here. 683.57, 683.42. So 683.57. That's right here. So that's the line in the sand. Because if we close this gap and real buyers come in at this shelf, well, you could potentially get a rally. If you break it, Okay, what's the next level of support? Well, not much. So you're looking at an hourly 50-period moving average. I guess right here, there's no price here that's really going to lead you to think that there'll be some support. So what do you have? Well, you got the 50-period simple. So here it is. You come crashing into it, bang, and within 15, 20, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it's hanging out right here. So what do we do? Do buyers come in? Do algos kick on? So you get a little bit of movement here, then you get movement here, then you get movement here, and then you get movement down to here, and then here. Well, all this movement is the market maker swinging price on the SPY to take out as many calls and puts as possible. This is just market manipulation. So this is not real buying. Real buying did not come into the SPY. So when I look at, do I want to trade this market? Let's look at what we would need to see to trade it bullishly.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video from Trade With Me Now. Make sure to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel so you make sure that you catch our next video right when it's released. Also, if you have a question or comment, please leave that in the comments section below. And of course, if you want to learn more about Trade With Me Now or join our community of profitable traders, go to tradewithmenow.com. There's also a link in the description below.